Welcome to Rock Your Talk with Leisa, Reid, and we're having our expert interview series with Pramod Patel today. He's going to talk about how you manage your lease obligations in this time of in certain times. So I want to welcome to the show, Pramod. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me
Yeah.
today, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And then tell the audience a little bit about you and like what you do for businesses.
Okay, so what I do is I'm a business broker, which means I help people determine the value of their business. They know what it's worth. And then when they're ready, I help them put it on the market and we look for buyers. And like you would sell a home, similar process. We find a buyer, negotiate the whole deal, go to escrow, and then hand off the keys when you're done.
I love how you make it sound so simple, but it's so important to have someone like you who's like calm, cool, and collected through that
Right.
process, because it's like matchmaking, literally, like
Correct.
finding that soulmate of like the buyer and the seller matching together, right? It's and then
Right.
all the
And
you're probably like a
yeah. And
therapist too, right? You're an accountant, a therapist.
that is the absolute truth. People think it's all numbers and business, and it's really there's a lot of emotion that go into buying a business because
Absolutely.
you're buying an imaginary concept essentially. If you buy a house, you can touch it, you can feel it, but a business, if you lease the property, it's not your property. You're buying a concept, and so
Right.
it can be emotionally scary for people.
I
So
mean, it's scary to
therapist is a good word.
purchase. It's
Yeah.
scary to purchase and scary to sell. I imagine there's certain people who have fears about selling their business, like their baby, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, how do I let go of this? So I imagine it's really helpful to have someone who's, even keeled,
Yeah.
looking at all the facts, but you also have a real strong sensitivity, I think, to people and calming
Yeah.
fears and things like that, but also being that even keeled personality. So I imagine you make the process pretty smooth for people as much as you can.
I do. I really do. It's so much has evolved just listening and really getting to understand what the fears and worries and concerns are of each client. And once you really get a deep understanding of them, it's pretty easy to work with those folks because they feel that they've you've heard them. And once you've heard somebody and you truly have, then you know how to address it. And a lot of times it's
Makes
just
sense.
all in their head. And when they've expressed it, they feel so much better. But then some things we have to get to work on. So that's where I have to use the
Mhm.
creativity to say, okay, they have a concern about X. Let me go figure out with problem number Y and see if we can put them together and make a solution. So
That's awesome.
definitely creative in this business as well.
Yeah, you're like always kind of like figuring out all the pieces. And I know in today's environment with shelter in place, and it's affecting a lot of businesses, affecting our entire world, for the most part, but certainly in our area here. And you were going to share some tips about lease obligations, because most businesses do have a lease, or even we're not going to necessarily get into home mortgages and things like that, but
Right.
if you're leasing commercial property, that's an obligation. So what are some, I think you were going to share 3 tips with us today about what do you tell people? What are you advising people to do right now?
Yeah, correct. I mean, first and foremost, the number one thing that anybody needs to do when they have their lease obligation is the rent amount. And so in this time for a lot of different industries, when they've had to shut down or drastically reduce their operations, revenues come down.
Yeah.
And so that's the time to then approach the landlord or your property management company and propose to them a solution to say, my revenue is down X percent, let's say 50%, and my overhead is still where it is. So I am only able to afford to pay X, and I want to work something out with you. So uh, please contact me. And so typically, that's the first place to start. Really, is just that bottom base rent amount
Okay.
and
Kind of like
seeing
if you don't
legitimately what you have.
if you
Yeah,
don't ask, you don't get, right? Like, so at one point, like, look at your numbers, come with it sounds like you're saying, don't just make up a random phone call. Check your numbers, get your data in order in terms of like your profits and
right.
your revenue, and have that set up that professional time to say, hey, what can we do? How can we create a win-win here? Sounds like that's
Correct. Seeing is
excellent.
believing. Seeing is believing. And so if you can show your landlord the actual effect, it's much easier for them to understand and then to agree with, okay, we will work with you by deferring this amount or reducing by this amount for this period. And there's definitely things that can be done to negotiate. So you wouldn't just want to negotiate just the first month, but let's say, a reduction for, let's say, a period of 3 months, and then to reassess again in 60 to 75 days to see where
Yeah,
you are.
it's a
And so
good tip.
definitely having that data is most important because it helps a landlord understand and really appreciate what to do. Um, which then kind of leads to the second thing I would recommend is that typically properties that are leased for business use, there's going to be some obligations for maintenance and property tax and whatnot. And so a lot of times they're what we call triple net or CAM charges. And it's definitely an idea to go back to the landlord to see if they're going to be adjusting their costs on how they're going to be spending to manage the property,
Mm.
and if they are reducing those costs, to make sure that you let them know that you'd like those passed on to you as well. So it's not just
Very
the
good
base rent.
tip. That's a great tip. Yeah. So
Yeah,
we don't think about those things as if we're renting or leasing commercial property. We're just like, well, this is my amount that I have to pay. We're not
right.
necessarily considering all the other factors that the leasing company or the landlord has to go through. So, very smart. Okay, good. Yeah, I
Correct.
like that. That's
And
a good one.
one quick, yeah, one quick follow-up on that would be is this: sometimes the reduction for the triple net or CAMs isn't just operating expenses like what they're paying their vendors, landscape artists, or landscape maintenance or whatnot, but then also property tax. Now, they may not immediately get a property tax reduction, but you can bet they're going to be requesting a reduction in the basis of the property value, so that their
Right.
property tax obligations come down. Is you want to make sure that in a few months, 6 months, 12 months, you follow up with them and say, have they gone to do that? And if they have, you should see those cost reductions flow through to the triple net and CAMs.
Right, and I would
So,
assume that a lot of I would assume, but this is an assumption, that a lot of businesses, including property management companies and people who own commercial buildings, are going to be applying for some of the SBA funds, as well as the small business owner. So, or the business owner, smaller, large, or medium.
right,
So it's kind of like a holistic thing is happening here. Systematically, we're all connected.
right,
And I like
right.
that. Okay, very good. What
Yeah.
what's your other tip? I know you had three.
Yeah. So the third one is going to be this ends up being possibly a good time to do one of a couple things, which is relocate. Now, it may be if you're a retail business, your location is great, you don't want to move. But let's say you're in a retail center that has many other units, and now all of a sudden maybe a better unit is going to go vacant. You may approach the landlord and say, hey, we're still going to survive. We want to keep going. In the middle of maybe working to modify a rent temporarily, if that space comes open over there, we want to move. We want to take
Oh,
it. So
very
also
smart.
thinking ahead, if you're in the position to think ahead to say, what can we do? Where can we go so that maybe we can get this better space at our same price now? So not really a reduction what we're paying now, but we can get this better spot that's maybe more visibility, a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller or whatever it may be, better. If you get it at the same cost or less, you've made an improvement. So maybe not reduction, but upgrade. That's another way to look at it.
Oh yeah, that's a really good idea. 'Cause sometimes we're uh so attuned to like kind of holding tight and waiting and gripping, but you're saying like if you are expanding and starting to see past this current situation, what do you want in the future, and really visualizing, you didn't say that word, but I think that's what you're alluding to, that if someone has been dreaming of like, oh, I really wish we had that place over there, or I really wish we had this ocean view, or I really wish we had whatever it is, this might be a great opportunity if your business can um, sustain the shift.
Right, right. And
Brilliant.
again, it's gets to what I'll mention, which is really focusing on what you can control.
Yes.
And so that is definitely a thing is to obviously approach step one, step two, rent reduction, seeing if they can reduce your cams or triple nets, and then from there, looking ahead to say, hey, strategically with that landlord, if you're there have other spaces available, maybe you can move to a better space to improve your business when things do get back to normal.
And real quick for our listeners, because what's just briefly, what's a triple net and what's a CAM? What does it stand for? Or
Sure.
like
So
a
triple
layman's
net is,
term explanation?
yeah. NNN stands for the three costs passed down to the tenant that are operating costs:
Okay.
property taxes, maintenance, and insurance costs. So those are the three N's. They also get referred to CAM, common area maintenance charges.
Okay.
Sometimes the terms, even though they mean the same thing, they get used interchangeably that way. So essentially, it's just the operating expenses that a landlord, for their own business, which is the property, they may pass on to the tenant.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I know that so just again, audience members, if you're looking to buy or sell a business, your own business, definitely you're going to want to reach out to Pramod. And I'll put his website in the notes as well, so that you can reach out to him. What is the best way for people to reach out to you, Pramod?
Sure. So the website is www.justelementary.com.
Okay.
And then obviously there's the main office line, which is 323-213-9193. And then by email, which is cs@justelementary.com. Either way they want to reach me, they can, and I can assess each situation case by case. And a lot of what I'm starting to do those last couple of weeks and doing now is helping clients with really approaching their landlords on these three things, helping them draft their letters,
Oh,
helping them put
wow.
their data together so that when they do request a reduction by, let's say, 40, 50, 60%, we have some data to justify it so that the landlord has less of a reason to say no and more reason to say, okay, I get it. I'll work with you on this.
Okay, that's awesome. And then, so do you help people in California, all over? Like what's your regional area?
So typically it's licensed in California. So I've done businesses as far north as South Lake Tahoe, but typically it's mostly here in Southern California. If somebody needs a lease negotiated out of state, I can basically help them with the basic template, and then they got to kind of run after that because I'm not familiar with lease amounts and lease customs in other areas. But
Mhm.
definitely on a high level, if they want to have some initial consultation, I have consulted with people all over this country actually with leases and lease negotiations on a high level.
Well, and you probably know a lot more than just, I mean, the average business owner doesn't do that very often. So
Correct.
your expertise can help them just even
Correct.
figuring out the starting point of like, where would I even begin? Um,
Right.
to get that going, because that's a can be a nerve-wracking conversation if you've never had to do that before. And
It
so I see
is.
the value of just the nervousness of it, and just having someone who's like, don't worry, here's what we're going to do. I've done this a million
Right.
times, we got you. And I
Right.
know that kind of on a professional personal side, I know that you are a pretty calm, cool, collected person. I would say you're
Right.
a healthy mindset. And um, how do you bring in your own emotional intelligence to your clients, to this situation, or your family? Like, how are you seeing that mindset strength that you have come into play here with what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, it's a couple of things, but let's start with I think the basics. Ultimately, we are all dealt a hand of cards, and that's out of our control. So, kind of what I've realized over the years, and we really got to emphasize when I did the weekend learning session with productive learning, was that all we can control is what we can control. And we can only think about one thing at a time. That is the honest truth. We can think about many things in a day, but at one any given second, all you think about is one thing. And the truth is, the more you spend time thinking about what you can control and what you're going to do about it, the better. Because things that are out of your control that you think about more, they cause anxiety and distress. So again,
Yeah.
bringing that focus back to what's under your control. And you'll find at the end of the day, you spend all your time thinking about things you can control and making actions on them, that you ran out of time to worry about things. And so it's that's the honest truth. So I really have become a big believer in just staying focused on what we can control and going through that list and making sure you prioritize the highest leverage items first. So don't just focus on all the simple fixes, not simple fixes, but the less effective fixes. Work on the big picture and work your way down, because that tackling that that biggest one is the
Hmm.
heaviest boulder. Once you get that pushed out of the way, every other boulder is so much smaller, and so much happens so much faster, and you build that momentum, and you feel accomplished, and you feel like you're making progress.
Yeah, I like what you said there too about, and that's one of the models that will actually we're addressing anxiety to empowerment.
Hmm.
That's our first virtual workshop that we're going to be offering soon.
Excellent.
And if anyone wants to check those other offerings out, it's at productivelearning.com. But
Nice.
we talk about that what's in your hands to control 100% and what's out of your hands 100%. And you nailed it when you talk about that, when we're starting to feel the panic or the anxiety or the stress, the frustration, all those, that's usually an indicator, right, that we're focused on something out of our hands, that like
Correct.
it's not 100% in our control. Like, I wish they would do this, and I wish this was different, and I wish that, and why can't it be this way? Which we're probably experiencing a lot right now.
Right.
um, and then you'll start to feel that frustration, the all those feelings. But then when we're able to catch that, which it sounds like you're doing a great job at, catch that, go, oh, okay, wait, hold on a second. I probably am focusing on something out of my hands right now. What is in my hands? What, and that sounds like what you're doing. Like, if
Right.
I can stay focused on what I can control right now in this moment, then I can like breathe a little deeper, and you start feeling, maybe a sense of calm or um, certainty, confidence, clarity, like this is my next step. Um, and maybe your tone is calmer and your voice is slowed down in your head. This is all right. This could
Right.
all be internal.
Right. Yeah. It's the truth. It's the truth.
Yeah,
Just focus on what you can control, because we all have plenty to do every
we
day. There's no doubt
do.
about that.
We do. I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you were able to take time out of your busy day. I know you've got a lot going on and helping so many people. So I just want to say thank you for being our guest. And if you wanted to reach out to Pramod directly, remember, you just go to justelementary.com. And we will see you on the next episode of our Rock Your Talk expert interview series. We have a whole bunch of great folks coming to share their strategies and tips with you as you navigate through these uncertain times. We will see you very soon.